The morning sun barely touched the kitchen window when Maya stood there, holding her growing belly with one hand and a crumpled piece of paper with the other. The paper was red. Final notice. Eviction. These words seemed too big, too scary for someone who was only 24 years old and expecting her first baby in 3 months. She looked out at the endless Wyoming countryside. The grass moved like ocean waves in the wind, but today it didn't look beautiful. It looked empty, lonely, just like she felt every single morning since David died 4 months ago. Their little white farmhouse sat on 40 acres of land that David's grandfather had bought decades ago. It wasn't much, but it had been home. Now the bank wanted it back. Maya couldn't blame them. She hadn't made a payment in 2 months. Before that, she'd been late for 6 months straight. The medical bills had eaten everything. David's cancer, treatments, the hospital stays, the specialist in Denver. They'd sold David's truck first, then his tools, then her grandmother's jewelry. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Maya walked to the kitchen table where more bills waited. Electric, company, phone company, the doctor who was taking care of her pregnancy. She picked up each one and put it down again. The numbers might as well have been written in a foreign language. She simply didn't have the money. The refrigerator hummed loudly in the quiet kitchen. Maya opened it and counted what was inside. 3 eggs, half a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter that was almost empty, some milk that would go bad in 2 days. She closed the door and leaned against it. "What am I going to do, baby?" she whispered to her belly. The baby kicked as if trying to answer. Maya remembered when she and David first moved into this house 3 years ago. They were so excited. David worked at Miller's feed store in town, and Maya cleaned houses for some of the wealthy families in Clearwater. They weren't rich, but they were happy. They had plans. David wanted to fix up the old barn, maybe get some chickens. Maya dreamed of painting the baby's room yellow since they didn't know if it was a boy or girl. She wanted it to be sunny and bright. Now the room was still empty except for boxes of David's things that she couldn't bear to go through. The nearest neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, lived 12 miles away. Maya hadn't seen her in weeks. The town of Clearwater was 40 minutes by car, and Maya's old sedan was making strange noises. She was afraid to drive it too far in case it broke down and left her stranded. Some days Maya felt like she was the only person left in the world. She walked to the bedroom she'd shared with David. His clothes still hung in the closet. His coffee mug still sat on the nightstand. Sometimes Maya would lie on his side of the bed and smell his pillow, but the scent was fading. Everything about David was fading, and that scared her more than the bills. Maya pulled out David's old wooden chest from under the bed. Inside were his important papers, some photos, and a leather journal she'd never read before. She opened it, carefully. David's handwriting filled the pages. "Maya looked so pretty today," one entry said. "She was singing while she cooked dinner. I love hearing her sing. I hope our baby gets her voice." Maya's eyes filled with tears. She turned more pages. "Talked to old Mr. Peterson about his cattle operation." David had written, "Maybe someday we could run a few head of beef on our back 40. Maya thinks it's a crazy idea, but I think we could make it work. She's so smart about money. Way smarter than me. More pages, more dreams." David had written about building a bigger house someday, about teaching their kids to ride horses, about growing old together on this land. "I know Maya worries about money," another entry said. "But I've got a feeling things are going to work out for us. She deserves every good thing in this world. I'm going to make sure she gets it." Maya closed the journal and held it against her chest. David had been such an optimist. Even when he was sick, even when the bills kept coming, he believed everything would be okay. Maya wished she had half his faith. The phone rang, making Maya jump. She almost didn't answer it. These days, phone calls meant bad news. Bill collectors, the bank. People wanting money she didn't have. "Hello?" she said quietly. "Mrs. Anderson? This is Janet from First National Bank. We need to discuss your mortgage situation." Maya's stomach dropped. I got your notice. I know. I'm behind. Mrs. Anderson, I'm sorry about your husband, I really am. but we need to move forward with the foreclosure process. You have 30 days to bring the account current or vacate the property. 30 days. Maya looked around the kitchen where she'd made breakfast for David every morning, where they'd planned their future, where she'd imagined feeding their baby. Is there any programs that might help? Maya asked. I wish there were, honey. But with your husband gone and no income coming in, I'm sorry, I really am. After Maya hung up, she sat in the quiet kitchen for a long time. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Maya put both hands on her belly. I'm going to figure this out, she whispered. I promise. But she didn't know how. That afternoon, Maya walked around the property. 40 acres wasn't huge by Wyoming standards, but it felt like a kingdom to her. This was where David had proposed, right by the old oak tree near the fence line. This was where they'd planned to teach their children to run and play. The fence needed repairs in several places. The barn roof had a hole that David had been planning to fix before he got sick. Everything needed work, and Maya didn't have the money or the skills to do it. She walked to the mailbox at the end of the long driveway. More bills waited inside. Maya didn't even look at them. She just tucked them under her arm and walked back to the house. That evening, Maya tried to eat dinner, but she wasn't very hungry. The baby needed nutrition, so she forced herself to finish half a peanut butter sandwich and a glass of milk. She was trying to make the food last as long as possible. She turned on the old television David had bought at a garage sale. The news was talking about cattle prices and oil drilling. Rich people problems, Maya thought. She changed the channel to a game show, but even the bright colors and cheerful music couldn't lift her mood. Before bed, Maya walked through the house one more time. She touched the walls that she and David had painted together. She looked at the photos on the mantel, their wedding day, David's last birthday, Christmas morning just 10 months ago when they'd found out about the baby. In the bathroom mirror, Maya could see how much weight she'd lost despite being pregnant. Her face looked thin and tired. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She barely recognized herself. David, she whispered to the empty house. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to be strong like you always said I was, but I'm scared. I'm so scared. The house was quiet except for the wind outside. Wyoming wind never stopped blowing. David used to say it was the sound of freedom, but tonight it just sounded lonely. Maya got into bed and pulled David's pillow close to her. Tomorrow, she would have to start making phone calls. Maybe someone could help. Maybe there was a program for pregnant widows that Janet at the bank didn't know about. Maybe she could find work that she could do from home. Maybe. But as Maya closed her eyes, she felt like she was holding on to hope with just her fingertips, and it was slipping away. The baby kicked one more time before Maya fell asleep, and for just a moment, she felt like David was there with her, telling her everything would be okay. She wanted to believe it so badly. Outside, the Wyoming wind kept blowing across 40 acres of land that might not be hers much longer. But inside the little white farmhouse, a young woman who had already survived more heartbreak than most people, twice her age, held on to the smallest spark of hope. Because sometimes that's all you can do. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that spark is enough to light up everything that comes next. 3 days later, the weather turned mean. Maya woke up to the sound of hail hitting her bedroom window like angry fists. The October storm had come out of nowhere, which was typical for Wyoming. One minute the sky was clear, the next minute it looked like the end of the world. Maya struggled to get out of bed. At 6 months pregnant, everything took more effort now. Her back hurt, her feet were swollen, and the baby seemed to think her ribs were a punching bag. But she needed to check the windows and make sure the house was secure. The wind was howling, like a wild animal. Maya had lived in Wyoming her whole life, but this storm felt different, meaner. She could hear things hitting the side of the house, probably tree branches or pieces of the old barn roof. By 8 o'clock that evening, the storm had gotten worse. Maya was sitting in the living room watching the lights flicker when she heard a different sound. Not wind or hail, but something else. Something that sounded like a crash. Maya got up and looked out the front window, but she couldn't see anything through the rain and darkness. She waited, listening. There it was again. Not a crash this time, but maybe a car horn? It was hard to tell with all the noise from the storm. She put on David's heavy winter coat, the one that still smelled like him, and found the big flashlight he kept by the door. Maya knew she shouldn't go outside in her condition, especially in this weather. But what if someone was hurt? What if someone needed help? The wind nearly knocked her over the moment she stepped outside. The rain was coming down so hard it felt like needles against her face. Maya pulled the coat hood up and pointed the flashlight toward the road. That's when she saw it. About 100 yards from her house, near the drainage ditch that ran alongside the county highway, was a truck. It was sitting at a strange angle, its headlights pointing up at the sky instead of down the road. One of the lights was flickering, on and off. Maya's heart started pounding. Someone had slid off the icy road and into the ditch. In this weather, in this remote location, they could freeze to death before anyone found them. She started walking toward the truck, fighting against the wind with every step. The flashlight beam bounced around wildly, but she could see it was a nice truck, newer and more expensive looking than anything most people around here drove. The front end was crumpled where it had hit something, maybe a fence post. As Maya got closer, she could see someone in the driver's seat, an older man slumped over the steering wheel. "Hello," Maya shouted over the wind. "Can you hear me?" No answer. Maya tried to open the driver's door, but it was stuck. She walked around to the passenger side and pulled hard. Finally, the door opened with a loud creak. The man was probably in his 70s. He had gray hair and was wearing expensive-looking clothes, good boots, a wool coat, the kind of outfit Maya had seen on wealthy ranchers in town. But right now he looked small and helpless. There was blood on his forehead from where he'd hit something, and he was barely conscious. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" Maya touched his shoulder gently. The man's eyes opened slowly. They were blue and sharp, even though he was obviously hurt. "What? Where am I?" he mumbled. "You've been in an accident," Maya said. "I'm going to help. You okay? But we need to get you out of here before you freeze." The man tried to sit up straighter and winced. "My truck, is it?" "Don't worry about the truck right now," Maya said. "Can you move your arms and legs?" He wiggled his fingers and moved his feet. Nothing seemed to be broken, which was good. But he was definitely in shock, and that cut on his head looked deep. "I need to get to Cheyenne," the man said, sounding confused. "The cattle, they're waiting." "Sir, you're not going anywhere tonight," Maya said firmly. "This storm isn't going to let up for hours. Come on, let me help you to my house." It took 20 minutes to get the old man from his truck to Maya's front door. He was heavier than he looked, and Maya had to stop several times to rest. Her back was killing her, and she was worried about the baby, but she couldn't leave him out there. Once they got inside, Maya helped him to the couch and turned on all the lights. In the bright light, she could see he was in worse shape than she'd thought. The cut on his forehead was still bleeding, and his skin was gray and cold. His hands were shaking. "What's your name?" Maya asked as she got the first aid kit David had kept in the kitchen. "William," the man said after a moment. "William Crawford, but most people call me Bill." Maya cleaned the cut on his forehead, as gently as she could. It was deep, but not deep enough to need stitches. She put a bandage over it and checked his eyes for signs of a concussion. They looked okay, but she wasn't a doctor. "Do you have any pain anywhere else, Mr. Crawford?" she asked. "My shoulder hurts a little," he said, "and I feel dizzy." Maya brought him a glass of water and a blanket. "When did you last eat?" Bill thought about it. "This morning, I think. Maybe yesterday morning, I'm not sure." Maya looked at her nearly empty kitchen and sighed. She had been saving her last can of soup for tomorrow, but this man needed food more than she did. She heated it up and brought it to him with some crackers. "You don't have to," Bill started to say. "Yes, I do," Maya said. "Eat." While Bill ate, Maya tried to use the phone to call for help. The lines were dead. She tried her cell phone, but there was no signal. The storm had knocked out everything. "Looks like you're stuck here for the night," Maya told him. "Maybe longer, depending on how long this storm lasts. Bill looked around the small living room. Maya could see him taking in the stack of bills on the coffee table, the thin curtains, the furniture that had seen better days. She felt embarrassed, but there was nothing she could do about it. "This is very kind of you," Bill said quietly. "You shouldn't have come out in that storm, not in your condition." Maya looked down at her belly. Someone needed help. "Most people would have called the police and stayed inside," Bill said. "Most people have phones that work," Maya replied. "Besides, by the time help got here, you might have frozen to death." Bill studied her face. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya Anderson." "Well, Maya Anderson, I owe you my life." Maya shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. Anyone would have done the same thing." But even as she said it, Maya wondered if that was true. Would she have gone out in that storm to help a stranger if she wasn't desperate and lonely herself? Maybe helping Bill was as much about having another human being in the house as it was about doing the right thing. The storm raged all night. Maya gave Bill the spare bedroom, David's old office where he'd paid bills and planned his dreams for the ranch. She made sure he had extra blankets and checked on him twice during the night to make sure he wasn't getting worse. Maya barely slept. The wind was so loud it sounded like the house might blow away. Every few minutes something would bang against the walls or roof. And she kept worrying about Bill. What if he had a concussion? What if he got worse during the night? But when morning came, Bill was sitting at her kitchen table looking much better. The color had returned to his face and his eyes were clear and focused. "Coffee?" Maya asked. "If you have it," Bill said. "I don't want to use up your supplies." Maya almost laughed. Her supplies were almost gone anyway, but she made coffee and scrambled her last 2 eggs, giving most of them to Bill. "You're not eating much," Bill observed. "I'm not very hungry in the mornings," Maya lied. The truth was she was saving food, but she didn't want to explain that to a stranger. Bill looked out the window at the storm, which was still going strong. "Looks like I'll be imposing on your hospitality for another day or 2. "You're not imposing," Maya said. And she meant it. Having another person in the house, someone to talk to, made her feel less alone than she had in months. Over the next 2 days, as the storm slowly passed, Maya learned a few things about her unexpected guest. Bill was obviously wealthy. He mentioned owning cattle and having business in Cheyenne. But he didn't talk down to her or act like he was better than she was. He helped wash dishes. He tried to fix her leaky kitchen faucet. He even attempted to repair the storm damage to her front porch, though Maya made him stop when she saw him favoring his sore shoulder. "You don't need to do that," she told him. "I don't like being useless," Bill replied. "Besides, your husband should be taking care of these things." Maya's face must have changed because Bill immediately looked sorry he'd said it. "My husband died 4 months ago," Maya said quietly. Bill was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. That must be very difficult, especially with the baby coming." "It is," Maya said simply. That evening, Bill noticed Maya reading David's journal again. She'd been reading it every night since she found it, trying to hold on to David's voice, his dreams, his optimism. "Was he a good man?" Bill asked. Maya looked up, surprised by the question. "The best man I ever knew. He believed in people, you know. He thought everyone deserved a chance to make their life better." "What did he do for work?" "He worked at the feed store in town. It wasn't glamorous, but he loved it. He loved talking to the ranchers and farmers about their animals and their land. He used to say that feeding people was the most important job in the world." Bill nodded slowly. "He sounds wise." "He was," Maya said. "He would have liked you, I think. He always said you could tell a lot about a person by how they treated people who couldn't do anything for them." The 4th day dawned clear and bright, but Maya's old car had other plans. When she turned the key, all she heard was a clicking sound. The engine wouldn't start. "Well, that's just perfect," Maya muttered, leaning back in the driver's seat with her hands on her belly. Bill came out of the house when he heard her trying to start the car. "Problems?" he asked. "It won't start," Maya said, trying to keep the frustration out of her voice. This car was her only connection to the outside world. Without it, she was truly stranded. Pop the hood, Bill said, rolling up his sleeves. Maya looked at him skeptically. Mr. Crawford, you're 70 years old and you just survived a car accident. I don't think you should be working on engines. Bill raised an eyebrow. Young lady, I was fixing cars before you were born. Pop the hood. Despite everything that had happened, Maya found herself smiling. Bill had a way of being bossy that reminded her of her grandfather. She pulled the hood release and got out of the car. Bill studied the engine for a few minutes, poking at various parts. When's the last time you had this thing serviced? He asked. Maya felt embarrassed. It's been a while. Money's been tight. Bill nodded without judgment. Battery's dead, and your alternator's on its last legs. I can get it started for you. But it's not going to last much longer. How much longer? Maya asked, dreading the answer. Maybe a few weeks. Maybe a few days. Hard to say. Maya closed her eyes. A new alternator would cost several $100s she didn't have. A new car would cost thousands she definitely didn't have. Hey, Bill said gently. Don't worry about that right now. Let me see what I can do. For the next hour, Maya watched in amazement as Bill worked on her car. His hands were skilled, and, sure, even at his age. He knew exactly what to touch and what to leave alone. When he was finished, the engine started on the first try. There, he said, wiping his hands on an old rag. That should get you around for a little while longer. How did you learn to do that? Maya asked. Bill smiled. Started working on cars when I was 12 years old. Had to, if I wanted to eat. My father wasn't much use, and my mother worked 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. This was the first time Bill had mentioned anything about his childhood. Maya was curious, but she didn't want to pry. Instead, she said, "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you." You would have figured something out, Bill said. That's what people like us do. People like us. Maya wondered what he meant by that. Since the car was working again, Maya offered to drive Bill to town so he could make arrangements to get home. But when they got to Clearwater, they discovered that the phone lines there were still down from the storm. The cell phone tower had been damaged too. Looks like I'm stuck with you for another day or two, Bill said as they drove back to the farm. Maya tried to hide how happy that made her. She'd gotten used to having someone to talk to, someone to share meals with. The thought of being alone again made her chest feel tight. That afternoon, they sat on Maya's front porch in the surprisingly warm October sun. Bill was whittling a piece of wood with a pocket knife, and Maya was mending one of David's old shirts. Not because she planned to wear it, but because keeping her hands busy helped her think less about her problems. You're very quiet today, Bill observed. Maya looked up from her sewing. Just thinking. About your husband? About everything, Maya said. About what I'm going to do when you leave. About how I'm going to take care of a baby by myself. About where I'm going to live. In a few weeks, Bill stopped whittling. You're losing the house? Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak without crying. How much do you owe? Bill asked. Too much, Maya said quietly. Bill was quiet for a long moment. Maya could hear him thinking, but she didn't know what about. Tell me about your husband, Bill said finally. What was he like? Maya smiled despite her sadness. He saw the good in everything. Even when things were bad, he could find something positive to focus on. When he got sick, he spent more time worrying about me than himself. How long were you married? 3 years. We dated for 2 years before that. I met him at a church picnic when I was 19. Maya laughed softly. I thought he was too good-looking to be interested in someone like me. Someone like you? Bill asked. I wasn't from a prominent family or anything. My parents worked hard but never had much. I cleaned houses and waited tables. David could have had anyone. But he chose you, Bill said. He did. And I never understood why until he got sick. Then I realized that David didn't care about what people had. He cared about who they were inside. Bill nodded slowly. Smart man. That evening, as Maya cooked dinner with the last of her food supplies, Bill insisted on helping. He wasn't much of a cook, but he could chop vegetables and stir pots. They worked together in comfortable silence, and Maya realized it was the most relaxed she'd felt in months. "Maya," Bill said as they sat down to eat, "can I ask you something personal?" "I guess so. Do you have any family? Anyone who could help you?" Maya shook her head. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. David's parents never really approved of me. They thought he was marrying beneath him. After he died, they made it clear they didn't consider me part of their family anymore. That's their loss," Bill said firmly. "Maybe, but it doesn't help my situation." After dinner, Bill helped Maya with the dishes. As they worked, he asked more questions about her life, her dreams, her plans for the baby. Maya found herself telling him things she hadn't told anyone else. How scared she was about giving birth alone. How she worried about being a good mother. How she sometimes felt guilty for bringing a child into such an uncertain situation. "You know what I think?" Bill said as they finished cleaning up. "What?" "I think that baby is lucky to have you as a mother. Any child who grows up with someone as kind and strong as you is going to turn out just fine." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't feel strong." "Strength isn't about not being scared," Bill said. "It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are scared. And that's exactly what you've been doing." The next morning, Maya woke up to the sound of hammering. She looked out her bedroom window and saw Bill on a ladder, fixing the hole in the barn roof. She threw on David's coat and hurried outside. "Mr. Crawford, get down from there right now." Bill looked down at her from the roof. "This hole's been letting rain in for months. It's going to rot your whole roof structure if someone doesn't fix it." "I can't afford to pay you for that work," Maya called up to him. "Did I ask you to pay me?" Bill called back. Maya watched nervously as Bill worked. He moved carefully, but he was still a 70-year-old man on a roof. However, she had to admit he seemed to know what he was doing. By noon, the hole was patched and several loose shingles had been secured. "Where did you learn to do roofing?" Maya asked when he finally came down. "Same place I learned to fix cars," Bill said. "When you grow up poor, you learn to fix whatever breaks or you do without." "But you're not poor now," Maya said. Bill was quiet for a moment. "No, I'm not. But I wasn't always wealthy. I remember what it's like to have nothing." That afternoon, they walked around Maya's property together. Bill pointed out things that needed fixing, fence posts that were rotting, a gate that was hanging crooked, drainage problems that could cause trouble in the spring. "This is good land," Bill said, picking up a handful of soil and letting it run through his fingers. "With some work you could run cattle on it, maybe 20 or 30 head." "David always talked about getting cattle," Maya said wistfully. "He thought we could make a go of it as ranchers." He was right. This land has potential. "Doesn't matter now," Maya said. "I'll be lucky to have a roof over my head next month, let alone cattle." Bill looked at her seriously. "Maya, what would you do if money wasn't a problem? What would your perfect life look like?" Maya thought about it. "I'd keep this house. Fix it up the way David and I planned. Get some cattle like he wanted. Raise my baby here where there's space to run and play. Maybe help other people somehow, I don't know how, but David always said we should use whatever we have to help others." "Those are good dreams," Bill said. "They're impossible dreams," Maya replied. "Maybe not as impossible as you think." That evening was their last night together, though neither of them knew it yet. Maya had managed to find a can of chicken soup in the back of her pantry, and she made biscuits from scratch. It wasn't much, but Bill ate like it was a gourmet meal. "You're a good cook," he said. "David always said that, but I think he was just being nice," Maya replied. "I'm not just being nice," Bill said. "I've eaten in some of the finest restaurants in the country, and this is better than most of them." Maya laughed. "Now I know you're just being nice." After dinner, they sat in the living room. Maya was reading David's journal again, and Bill was looking through one of David's books about cattle ranching. "He really studied this stuff," Bill said, holding up the book. "Look at all these notes in the margins. Maya looked over. David had indeed filled the margins with his own thoughts and observations. He read everything he could get his hands on about ranching. He said if we were going to do it, we were going to do it right. He sounds like he was a thorough man. He was. Maybe too thorough sometimes. He researched everything to death before making any decisions. Maya woke up early on what would turn out to be the most important day of her life, though she had no way of knowing it at the time. She could hear Bill moving around in the kitchen, and the smell of coffee drifted down the hallway. When she got to the kitchen, she found Bill fully dressed in his cleaned and mended clothes, sitting at her table with a cup of coffee and a serious expression on his face. "Good morning," Maya said, but something in Bill's posture made her stomach flutter with nervousness. "Good morning, Maya. Sit down, please. We need to talk." Maya poured herself a glass of milk and sat across from him. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Bill said carefully. "But I need to leave today. I can't impose on your hospitality any longer." Maya had known this was coming, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the gut. "Of course, I understand. You have your own life to get back to." "It's not that simple," Bill said. He pulled out a cell phone Maya hadn't seen before. "This finally. Got a signal this morning. I've already called for someone to come get me." Maya stared at the phone. "You've had that the whole time?" "Yes, but it hasn't worked since the accident. No signal out here, but this morning..." He held up the phone. "1 bar. Enough to make a call." Maya felt confused and a little hurt. "So you could have left yesterday if you'd tried." Bill looked uncomfortable. "Maybe. Probably. Then why didn't you?" Bill was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. "Because I didn't want to leave yet." Before Maya could ask what he meant by that, they heard the sound of a vehicle coming up the long driveway. Through the window, Maya could see a large black truck with tinted windows heading toward the house. "That's my ride," Bill said, standing up. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. She wasn't ready for him to go. These past 5 days had been the first time since David died that she hadn't felt completely alone and overwhelmed. "Bill, she started to say, but she didn't know how to finish the sentence. The truck pulled up in front of the house and 2 men got out. They were both wearing nice suits and looked like they could be bodyguards or business associates. One of them was carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Crawford?" the taller man called through the front door. "Coming," Bill called back. Then he turned to Maya. "Before I go, I have something for you." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a white envelope. "I want you to promise me you won't open this until tonight. After I'm gone. Can you promise me that?" Maya took the envelope, which was heavier than she expected. "Bill, what is this?" "Promise me," he said firmly. "Tonight, not before." "I promise," Maya said, though she was burning with curiosity. Bill smiled and touched her shoulder gently. "Maya Anderson, you saved my life. More than that, you reminded me that there are still good people in this world. People who help strangers, without expecting anything in return." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Maya said, though they both knew that wasn't true. "No," Bill said firmly. "They wouldn't have. What you did took courage and kindness and selflessness. Not everyone has those qualities." The men outside knocked on the door. Mr. Crawford were on a tight schedule. "1 minute," Bill called back. Then he looked at Maya seriously. "I need you to know something. These past few days have meant more to me than you can possibly understand. I haven't been treated with genuine kindness in longer than I care to admit." Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "You've been wonderful company. I'm going to miss you." "Take care of yourself and that baby," Bill said. "And remember, you're stronger than you think you are." He kissed her forehead like a grandfather would, and then he was gone, walking out to the black truck with the 2 men in suits. Maya watched from her window as they loaded his few belongings into the vehicle. Just before getting into the truck, Bill turned back and waved at her. Maya waved back, feeling like her heart was breaking a little bit. Then the truck pulled away, leaving nothing but dust and silence. Maya stood in her empty kitchen, holding the mysterious envelope and feeling more alone than she had since David's funeral. The house felt too quiet, too big, too empty. She could still smell Bill's coffee in the air, but already it felt like he had been a dream. She looked down at the envelope in her hands. It was thick and heavy, sealed with tape. Her name was written, on the front in Bill's careful handwriting, "For Maya Anderson, do not open until tonight." The curiosity was killing her, but she had promised. Maya put the envelope on her kitchen counter and tried to go about her day as normally as possible. But nothing felt normal anymore. Every room in the house reminded her of something Bill had said or done. The living room where they'd talked for hours, the kitchen where he'd helped her cook, the front porch where he'd fixed the broken steps. Around noon, Maya tried to distract herself by going through more of David's things. She found a box of his tools in the closet and wondered if she could sell them. They weren't worth much, but every little bit would help. She also found David's old address book and thought about calling some of his friends to let them know about the baby. But most of the numbers were for people she barely knew, and she felt awkward about reaching out to them now. The afternoon dragged on forever. Maya tried to read, but she couldn't concentrate. She tried to nap, but she wasn't tired. She kept looking at the clock, willing it to be evening so she could open Bill's envelope. Finally, around 6 o'clock, Maya decided she had waited long enough. The sun was setting, which technically made it evening, right? She sat at her kitchen table and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper and money. More money than Maya had ever seen in one place. With shaking hands, she counted the bills. $2,000 in cash. Maya's first thought was that this was way too much. Bill was thanking her for her hospitality, but this was more than a thank you. This was life-changing money. Then she unfolded the paper and read Bill's note. "Dear Maya, first let me say again how grateful I am for everything you did for me. You saved my life, but more than that, you showed me kindness when I needed it most. The money in this envelope is not charity, and it's not payment for your help. Consider it a gift from one friend to another. Use it to catch up on your bills, to buy groceries, to take care of yourself and your baby. I know you're too proud to accept help easily, but sometimes we all need help. There's no shame in that. David would want you to accept this, and you know it. But Maya, this is just the beginning. I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am or what I do. I had my reasons for keeping quiet, but now it's time for you to know the truth. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call this number, 307-555-0147. Ask for Patricia Henderson. Tell her you're the woman who helped William Crawford during the storm. She'll know what that means. I meant what I said about you being stronger than you think. You're going to be a wonderful mother, and that baby is lucky to have you. Don't give up on your dreams, Maya. Sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Your friend, William Crawford, P.S. The address where you can reach me is 1247 Capitol Avenue, Cheyenne, Wyoming, 82001, but the phone number is faster. Maya read the note 3 times, trying to process what it meant. Bill wanted her to have his contact information, which was nice, but there was something about the way he wrote the note that made it sound like more than just keeping in touch. I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am or what I do. What did that mean? Maya had assumed Bill was a successful rancher or businessman, but was there more to it than that? She looked at the phone number and address he'd given her. The address was in Cheyenne, which was a big city by Wyoming standards. Maybe Bill was more successful than she'd thought. Maya put the money and the note back in the envelope and sat back in her chair. $2,000 would solve her immediate problems. She could catch up on her mortgage payments, buy groceries, maybe even get her car fixed properly. But why would Bill give her so much money? She'd helped him, yes, but any decent person would have done the same thing. It didn't seem like enough reason for such generosity. Unless... Maya shook her head. She was probably overthinking this. Bill was obviously a wealthy man who could afford to be generous. Maybe helping strangers was something he did regularly. That night, Maya lay in bed holding David's journal and thinking about the past week. Bill's arrival had been like a light turning on in her dark world. For 5 days, she hadn't felt alone or hopeless. She'd had someone to talk to. someone who listened to her fears and dreams without judging her. Now he was gone, and the silence felt heavier than before. But she had his phone number, and $2,000 that would buy her time to figure out what to do next. Maya opened David's journal to a page she'd read many times before. Sometimes I think Maya doesn't realize how special she is. She gives and gives without expecting anything back. I hope our baby gets her heart. The world needs more people like Maya. Reading David's words, Maya felt a spark of the optimism that had been missing from her life for months. Maybe Bill was right. Maybe she was stronger than she thought. Maybe there was still hope for her and her baby. The next morning, Maya drove to town and deposited the money in her bank account. Janet at the bank looked surprised when Maya handed her enough cash to bring her mortgage current. "Mrs. Anderson, this is wonderful," Annette said. "How did you manage to come up with this much money?" 2 weeks passed quietly after Bill left. Maya used his generous gift to catch up on her bills and buy supplies, but she still felt uncertain about her future. The money wouldn't last forever, and she still didn't have a reliable income. Day Maya thought about calling the phone number Bill had given her. She wanted to thank him properly, but she also felt curious about his mysterious note. What had he meant when he said he hadn't been entirely honest about who he was? Finally, on a Tuesday morning, Maya worked up the courage to make the call. She dialed the number Bill had written down and waited nervously as it rang. "Crawford Holdings, this is Patricia Henderson speaking." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Crawford Holdings, that sounded like a big company, not just a ranch or small business. Hello," Maya said, suddenly feeling nervous. "My name is Maya Anderson. I was told to call this number and ask for Patricia Henderson." "Yes, of course." Patricia's voice immediately became warm and excited. "Mrs. Anderson, Mr. Crawford told me all about you. I've been hoping you would call." He told you about me?" "Oh my goodness, yes. You're the woman who saved his life during that terrible storm. He's been talking about you constantly." "Hold on, let me see. Are you available this afternoon? I'd like to drive out and meet you in person." Maya was confused. "You want to drive out here? But you don't even know where I live." Patricia laughed. "Mrs. Anderson, we know exactly where you live. Mr. Crawford made sure we had all your information. He's been very worried about you." This was getting stranger by the minute. "Worried about me? Why?" "It would be better if we discussed this in person. Would 2 o'clock work for you?" Maya looked around her small house, suddenly self-conscious about having an important businesswoman visit. I guess so. But I don't understand what this is about." "You will this afternoon. I promise." "And Mrs. Anderson? Thank you. What you did for Mr. Crawford, well, you'll understand soon enough how important it was." After Maya hung up, she spent the rest of the morning cleaning her house and wondering what she had gotten herself into. Who exactly was William Crawford? And why was his employee acting like Maya was some kind of hero? At exactly 2 o'clock, a sleek silver car pulled into Maya's driveway. A professional-looking woman in her 50s got out, carrying a leather briefcase. She was dressed in an expensive suit and looked completely out of place in Maya's rural setting. "Mrs. Anderson," the woman said, walking up to the front porch. "I'm Patricia Henderson. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me." Maya shook her hand, noticing how firm and confident her grip was. "Please come in, though I have to say I'm very confused about all this." Patricia followed Maya into the living room and sat down on the old couch. She looked around the house with interest, taking in the modest furnishings and the obvious signs of financial struggle. "Mrs. Anderson," Patricia began, "what I'm about to tell you might come as quite a shock. Do you have any idea who William Crawford is?" "He said he was a rancher," Maya replied. "He mentioned having cattle and needing to get to Cheyenne for business." Patricia smiled. "Well, that's not entirely wrong, but it's not the whole story either." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Anderson, William Crawford, is one of the wealthiest men in Wyoming. He owns Crawford Holdings, which is the largest private landowner in the state. His company controls over 200,000 acres of ranch land, plus mining operations, oil wells, and commercial real estate. Maya stared at her. I'm sorry, what? He owns 47 cattle ranches across Wyoming, Patricia continued. His company employs over 3,000 people. Last year alone, Crawford Holdings generated over $800 million in revenue. Maya felt like the room was spinning. That's impossible. He was just a nice old man who got in a car accident. A nice old man who happens to be worth approximately $400 million, Patricia said gently. Maya sank back in her chair. 400 million? Give or take. It's hard to put an exact number on someone with that many assets. But he helped me fix my car. He patched my roof. He washed dishes in my kitchen. Patricia smiled. That sounds exactly like something Bill would do. Despite his wealth, he's never forgotten where he came from. His father was an alcoholic who abandoned the family when Bill was 10. His mother worked 3 jobs to keep them fed and housed. Bill started with nothing and built his empire from scratch. Maya tried to process this information. The humble, helpful man who had stayed in her house for 5 days was actually one of the richest people in the state. Mrs. Anderson, Patricia continued, Mr. Crawford hasn't stopped talking about you since he returned to Cheyenne. He's been asking about you constantly, worrying about your situation. That's why I'm here. I don't understand. Patricia pulled more papers from her folder. Mr. Crawford has authorized me to make you an offer. Actually, several offers. Maya's heart started pounding. What kind of offers? First, Crawford Holdings would like to purchase your property, not to tear it down or develop it, but as part of our environmental conservation program. We're creating wildlife corridors and protecting grasslands across Wyoming. Patricia handed Maya a document. Maya looked at the number on the purchase offer and gasped. That can't be right. My property isn't worth anywhere near that much. According to our appraisers, it's worth every penny, Patricia said. Your 40 acres connect 2 of our existing properties, making it strategically valuable for conservation purposes. Plus, Mr. Crawford insisted on a premium because of your personal circumstances. Maya stared at the number again. It was enough money to buy a nice house in town with cash left over for her child's future. But there's more, Patricia said. Mr. Crawford would like to offer you a job. A job? Doing what? I don't have any special skills or education. Patricia smiled. You have something much more valuable than formal education. You have compassion and integrity. Mr. Crawford wants to create a new position at Crawford Holdings, Director of Family Support Services. You would help employees who are facing hardships, connect them with resources, coordinate assistance programs. Maya shook her head in disbelief. But I've never done anything like that before. You helped a stranger during a storm without expecting anything in return. You showed kindness to someone when you had every reason to be focused on your own problems. That's exactly the kind of person who should be helping others. Patricia pulled out another document. The position comes with a salary of $65,000 per year, full health benefits, flexible hours so you can care for your baby, and a company car to replace that old sedan of yours. Maya felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Mrs. Anderson? Are you all right? Maya looked up at Patricia. Why? Why is he doing all this? Patricia's expression grew serious. May I tell you something that Mr. Crawford probably wouldn't want you to know? Maya nodded. When Bill was in his 20s, he was in a car accident during a snowstorm. He was driving alone on a remote highway when he hit a patch of ice and crashed. He was hurt and stranded, just like he was at your house. Patricia paused. A young woman found him. She was probably about your age with a small child in the car. She could have just called for help and driven on. Instead, she stayed with him in the freezing cold for 3 hours until help arrived. She probably saved his life. What happened to her? Maya asked. Bill never saw her again. He was unconscious when the ambulance took him away. He spent years trying to find her so he could thank her, but he never could. It's bothered him his whole life that he never got to repay her kindness. Maya felt tears starting to form in her eyes. When you helped him during that storm, Patricia continued, it was like getting a second chance. A chance to do for someone else what he wished he could have done for that woman 40 years ago. Maya was crying now. But this is too much. I just did what anyone would do. No, Patricia said firmly. Most people would have called for help if they could, or just kept driving if they couldn't. You risked your life and your pregnancy to help a stranger. That's not what anyone would. That's what heroes do. Maya wiped her eyes. I'm not a hero, I'm just someone who needed to help. Exactly, Patricia said with a smile. That's what makes you perfect for this job. Maya looked down at the papers in her lap. A job that would pay her more than she'd ever dreamed of earning. A house sale that would secure her financial future. A chance to help other people the way Bill was helping her. There's one more thing, Patricia said. Mr. Crawford has asked if you would consider letting him be an honorary grandfather to your baby. He never had children of his own, and he's quite taken with the idea. Maya laughed through her tears. He wants to be a grandfather? He's already bought out half the baby store in Cheyenne, Patricia said. I had to stop him from buying a pony. Oh, pony, the baby isn't even born yet, that's what I told him. He settled for a crib that probably cost more than most people's cars. Maya looked around her small living room, trying to imagine her life completely transformed. Financial security, meaningful work, a family connection for her child. Mrs. Anderson, Patricia said gently, I know this is overwhelming. You don't have to decide anything right now. Take all the time you need to think about it.